Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with episode 90 of our Reddit series. This one's going to be a bit different, it's going to be some church drama, and I know you're going to love this one. This is only our second time doing this, but you guys loved it last time, so if you want me to keep doing this subreddit, don't forget to leave a like on the video to show me you love it. Now all you need to do is sit back, relax, and laugh at a bit of church drama. So, this church in particular that I'd been attending since I was about 8, and at 9 to 10, I started serving on the children's technical team to do my part and serve the church. Fast forward about 6 or 7 years later, I'm still working on the children's technical team, and frankly, I was running the whole team for about 2 years because I'd been there the longest out of the majority of the staff that had worked there. So regularly, for whatever reason, they made the head of the children's ministry step down, which is the church's way of saying fired, about every 2 or 3 years. Each of them doesn't ever learn from the mistakes of the previous head, but that's none of my business. So let's call her Karen. Karen became the head and particularly did not like me. I've just met her and she's already giving me the church stink eye. She goes on to berate me in front of the children and my team plenty of times for the pettiest reasons. It got to the point where I was just ready to quit and plenty of other people were going to leave as well because she just made serving really hard for no reason. Now, the pinnacle of the disrespect was when she accused me of being a pedophile for training one of my team members in a church. Now, if I wasn't mad before, I was now. I started laying into her about how she's a nuisance to people that just want to serve their God in peace, and I quit on the spot. I stopped going to church altogether and I never looked back. I heard from some of my friends that still go there that a lot of the volunteers quit right behind me because they were tired of her BS and couldn't find enough volunteers to replace us for a couple of months. What I hate more than anything about these kind of people, and let's be honest, she's probably an entitled mum, but that aside, what I really hate the most is the fact that these people seem to forget that the people volunteering are doing it completely out of goodwill and they have absolutely no obligation to be using their own free time to be helping out. Honestly, most of these head ofs last 2 or 3 years. I'd be surprised if this woman even lasted 6 months. I grew up in a Baptist church, and with a lot of big churches, there were summer Bible camps every year. One time, when I was around 10 years old, I went to camp and there were a lot of different church groups filled with kids my age. They were all between about 7 years old and 11 years old. There were at least 1,000 kids when this pastor gets up on stage and starts preaching about something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and eventually he tells us something that I'll never forget. He says, "If you have an atheist friend, I want you to tell them that they are a meaningless bag of atoms. They are worthless." Anyway, I didn't remember this until years later whenever I realized that I didn't believe anymore. I told my parents and they got mad and said that I still had to go to church, so I did. Eventually, I told one of the youth leaders that I didn't believe anymore after he was telling me how to be a better Christian. He went on a long 20-minute rant saying how I was worthless since I'm not a Christian. After I got out of there, I told my dad and he said that I didn't have to go anymore. Not the biggest church drama, but still horrible, especially considering that he still teaches there. I think what probably upsets me more than anything is that his parents weren't supportive of his decision and that they forced him to continue going to church just to get ridiculed like this. I mean, not to say that it's the parents' fault, but when your kid comes to you telling you that they've had this happen and this is all going on and whatever else, you really need to be a little bit more supportive than just saying, "Tough luck, you're going to continue doing what we want." I get that it's hard for someone to accept that their kid doesn't have the same beliefs as them, but it indirectly resulted in this person getting verbally abused by someone at church. I mean, doesn't really seem worth it to me. I'm not an overly religious person, and I don't go to church very much anymore. This happened when I was 14, and only just realizing that I'm not heteronormal. I'm a biromantic asexual, and I grew up in a tiny town that loved the Tea Party and had an active KKK. So my life is already on the brink of hell. Because I was getting confirmed for confirmation, I had to go to a weekly mass and chose to sing in the choir. My church was tiny. Everyone had their seats that literally had names on the pews for some zealous families. Mum and I had a pew in the back and I had my choir spot. Word spread quickly about me and garbage began being left on our pew. Dirty diapers and crap like that. There was a lot of muttering and even boos when I sang sometimes. But Father got it under control and passive aggressively told everyone to be chill and calm down. One Sunday, there was a noose on my chair and a note in red ink/blood telling me that fags are burnt in hell. This really upset me and I hid in the church office to cry. Father saw me and I showed him the note and rope and asked if I was a bad person. He had the deacon give an abbreviated mass and sat with me talking about life and how the Bible wasn't a clear directive for life and how it was more of a guideline of how to be kind and good to each other. I didn't want to go the next week, but I had to for confirmation. We walked into the church early and all of the banners and flags that were usually a solid green given the time of year were rainbow. Signs were posted everywhere saying God loves Jews, God loves Muslims, God loves Christians, men, women, children, straight, gay, everyone. And God loves you. Everyone was pissed and upset. Father came out and gave a sermon about who Jesus spent his time with, why powerful people liked him, and if we truly believe the world was made for us by God, then he made the straight and the gay, and Adam and Steve was just as good as Adam and Eve. Lots of complaints were made after that. We stayed just till my confirmation and then left. Immediately after that, people accused Father of seeing prostitutes and assaulting an altar girl. He was removed from the church just to calm everybody down. We still got lunch and he came over for holiday dinners with my family for years until he died from a heart attack. I was even invited to his wedding. His husband is still a family friend. Wow, so that was the first time I read that, and I'll tell you one thing, that ending definitely took me off guard a little bit. But you know what? That aside, this pastor seems like a genuinely good person, and he was way too good for a church that can't accept the other people within their own community. Most of these stories involve a pastor doing something wrong or something bad by the church, so it's really good to see the other side of the coin where the pastor's doing something really good for these people and standing up for the little guys. So I went to a Methodist school for a period of time. Every Tuesday, there would be a short chapel service first thing in the morning. The band from the Christian club would lead in song, then a pastor would give a sermon before we head off for class. All students, Christian or not, would have to attend this service. Thus, most of my peers would be catching sleep or chatting during this time. We weren't allowed to use our phone during school hours, and I was a devout Christian then, and I'm now agnostic, and even I struggle to pay attention to the sermons. But I remember a particular sermon. The pastor was from one of the affiliated churches, and he spoke about music. Specifically, music that was satanic and sinful. He went through all the points, such as the symbolism in music videos and their backwards masking. My friends were all confused, but since I grew up with that crap, it was all in one ear and out the other for me. The drama happened when he brought out examples. He cited Lady Gaga's Judas and Born This Way, One Republic's Counting Stars, which was one of the hit pop songs at the time, Katy Perry's Dark Horse for the Egyptian imagery and symbolism, and a few other pop artists. Needless to say, the school hall exploded. All of the students got mad, there was shouting, and there was booing. Eventually, the discipline master had to step in and the sermon ended quite abruptly. Still, the flames of outrage continued to spread. It was the only thing that we talked about for the week. There was even some feedback to teachers on just how inappropriate and inaccurate that message was. About 2 weeks later, the discipline master gave an announcement during assembly. The pastor has apologized for his sermon and has retracted his statement. A round of applause and cheers ensued. We got scolded for cheering, but who cares? You know, while I'm reading this one out, all I could think of was that video of that lady at some kind of convention. I don't know exactly what it was, but she either had one of the Monster or the Mother cans, and I remember one quote from it. It was something along the lines of, "Bottoms up and the devil laughs." I don't know, honestly, just some of the scare tactics that people come up with over some of the most ridiculous things, I find it hilarious, and this here just falls into the same boat. Like, you can't tell people what kind of music they can and can't listen to, and you can't tell people what kind of, I suppose, non-alcoholic beverages they can and can't drink. I mean, it's just ridiculous. My dad used to be a church elder. He has lived in my hometown since he was a child and knows almost everyone in the town, especially everyone who goes to church. He was really well liked by everybody and he was really involved in the church. We used to have Easter services up at my old house, and my dad would spend at least 2 weeks making sure everything was perfect and would get all of the chairs and provided food and hot cross buns and the like, and almost the entire congregation would come up to them. We also had Easter egg hunts for the children right up until I was about 13 and the services stopped, thanks to some chunts, but that's a story for another time. Before my dad met my mum, he was a single man in his very late 40s and was and still is such a pushover and one of the sweetest and most generous men you'll ever meet, which meant he was generally good at being a church elder and he loved doing it and everyone in the community loved him. But unfortunately, at my church, there were a group of women who were such hateful, spiteful shrews who basically ruled the church like the Pope. If they decided on something, they would bully the minister until he made it happen. And if they didn't get their way, they would make life horrible for other people. So we would affectionately call them chunts. When my dad met my mum, she was still married to her first husband. but they had been separated for a few years at this point. My mum had no money to pay for a divorce, and her husband at the time refused to. Mum and dad started seeing each other and they fell in love, and eventually my mum found out that she was pregnant with my sister. I don't know if it's the same in the rest of the world, but in the UK, if you are pregnant, you get free dental care. My mum went to the dentist while she was pregnant, and the receptionist was one of the Chunt's daughters. You can only imagine how scandalized the Chunts were at such an upstanding member of the community, such as my father dating a married woman, let alone getting her pregnant out of wedlock. The Chunts got together and bullied the minister so much that he actually asked my dad to step down as church elder and heavily hinted that he stop taking such an interest in the church. The Chunts pressured the minister so much that he actually refused to christen my sister, and it was only when we got a new minister that she was christened. The Chunts also made life for my dad so bad that he felt he couldn't go to church again for several months, as they had spread gossip about him all over town. God bless the new minister who refused to be bullied by the Chunts in all the time he was at the church. We still go to that church, and there are still some Chunts, but they're nowhere as bad as they used to be, and everyone still loves my dad. The focus for their anger is now on the church across the street, and my mum and her first husband got divorced before my sister was born and married very quickly afterwards in the same church. Well, I mean, we pretty quickly did a 180 about a minister doing the complete opposite of what I said in the last story. I just don't get how there's so little understanding for situations that other people get in when they don't 100% follow the church's values. Like, these people will be treated like absolute saints, and they will do the slightest thing that is against the church's values, and they'll be treated like an outcast for the rest of their life. I don't know. It just kind of upsets me seeing these kind of stories, but at least for some kind of redemption, the new minister had a little bit of common sense and was willing to help these people out. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of r/ChurchDrama. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Before I get into asking you guys to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Bumfris, I just want to say thank you for all the suggestions for this. I know we mentioned it in a previous video and a few of you guys went and checked it out, and you were really excited by the possibility of making a video, and I'm really happy we did. The only problem with this subreddit is it is quite small. Like I said at the start of the video, there's only about 6,500 people that follow it, so there's not a lot of great new content on here. So if you guys do have some stories where you would like to see me feature them, now is probably the best opportunity that you'll have, because like I said, there's not a lot on here at the moment. But yeah, I am really excited to expand into new and smaller subreddits, so thank you again for all the suggestions. I really do appreciate it, but otherwise I am going to let that wrap things up there. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you're all having a fantastic day. Tomorrow is going to be another episode of Entitled Parents, of course, so I'll see you there, and don't forget that you're all awesome. Bye.